Okay, who is our next guest? It's a young sister, Young Naphtalie. Welcome, Young.
Thank you. Hi.
Sister, I'll let you introduce yourself, where you're from, your age, and then also what you're doing in your involvement with High Noon.
Great. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Hi, Uncle Watanabe. My name is Young
Hello.
Naphtalie. I'm based of Kenya, so I'm all the way across from you guys.
Yeah.
I'm 30 years old, and I'm a second generation. With Hainan, I am an AP, what we now call mentors. I also facilitate Hainan sessions for the last 2-3 years.
Got it. And did you, before you facilitate, or were you a participant in a program at some point?
No, I've never been a participant. So right now, I actually, out of curiosity, just went into the core program, mostly because a lot of my participants, not a lot, a few of my participants have mentioned it and said it was great. So I was like, let me see what you guys talk about, so that next time we're having this conversation, I have real good reference on what you're speaking about.
Got it. Yeah. So how did you initially get started with facilitating a group of women, right, who are trying to have sexual integrity? How did you get started with that?
So a few years back, we had a group called the Matching Sister Support Community. So it was a group of young ladies, second generation within our community, who are preparing for matching or blessing or thinking about it from around the world. That was a spin-off from the first virtual 24 plus. So a fantastic sister called Grace came up and said, whoever wants to join this movement, let's do this for 1 year. She was contributing to and committing to host sessions. So every month we would read a book, and then we would meet together and read, and then we'd pair up in groups of 3 to 4 sisters from different parts of the world, just to keep each other accountable. Then over that time, one of the sisters, Mai at the time, decided to share her story, and she said about her journey with Hainun, and of course the challenge that they have right now, that they don't have as many sister facilitators for the program, of course, because more often than not, the matters of pornography and masturbation are not thought to be much affecting women, as much as there's probably real statistics out there that women too are actually having this specific challenge. It's just that the society does not encourage these conversations. Of course, inspired by her sharing, I told her, hey, I think I want to be there, because outside of Haiden, a lot of my work in my professional space includes a lot of coaching and mentorship. So may as well contribute in our own movement by doing this. And therefore, I gave her my email and asked her, could you email me when there's an opportunity to step up for someone, a sister or whatever I can do. A couple of weeks later, she sent me an email and said, hey, we have a sister. We don't have someone to work with her. Do you mind? She's about your age. And I've worked with her since then to now. She's doing really, really well. She herself has become a facilitator. So it's been a great journey for me.
Got it. Okay, so that's how you got involved. Yeah, I appreciate that. We're going to get to some of the statistics we have in our movement in a bit. So thank you for being here, Janyang. Janyang, it's so good to see you. Yeah,
Thank you.
We communicate a lot by message, so it's always nice to actually get some face, right? Akira-san, what is your experience with helping men, in particular, young men, through porn habits?
So yeah. Anyway, so already Benji kind of mentions I was in a program, kind of leadership training program for the first generation, second generation young unificationists. So and so called now it's still now called GPA and also COP. And when they're striving to be a better person, right? We talk about change the world, we're gonna be a future leaders, we're gonna connect to God. The more the people who are striving to grow, striving to be a better person, striving to contribute for betterment for the world, this comes to sexuality, this guilt of not being able to overcome what they're talking about, overcome the thing that they, and it's important. It's kind of huge, heavy weight on them. That I realize that kind of few days are sober, then slip, and then how much that affect them, and then they will lose the confidence to be a leader, confidence that, oh, I shouldn't be here, I shouldn't be talking about it because I'm the one sleeping. So it's a really huge stumbling block to go forward. That's I realize that unless we are able to help them, we cannot bring their strengths or goodness out, because that is a huge discouragement, huge weight on them. So I realize that we can't skip this. We gotta talk about it. We have to talk about the freedom. Otherwise, we cannot help them to become people that they can be. Potential won't come out. So that's my experience.
Yeah, thank you. This is really good context for this conversation. All right. So here we go. I'm going to be sharing a survey result, polling of 4,000 young unificationists that High Noon surveyed across 80 different countries around the world. All right. So these are workshops for young people, high school, college age, young adults, right? So keep in mind, for context, these are not random people. There are people in our faith, and they're the most gung-ho and faithful and forward-charging, forward-thinking, want to receive the blessing, maybe struggling with their faith, but at least curious to understand God, true parents, right? So keep that in mind. So of the men that we received response from, 82% said that they intentionally accessed porn in the last 6 months in our survey. Okay. By the way, these are anonymous survey submissions, so we don't know who they are because we wanted them to feel free to be honest, right? So 82% of men. For the women, 48% of the women intentionally accessed porn in the last 6 months. Okay, so that is slightly better than the generic average, but it's not very different, just so everyone knows. 85% of the respondents have never spoken with a parent about it. 66% said that they have no one to help them quit. 66% said they have no one to help them quit. 77% said they believe porn is causing them harm. 74% said that they believe it will have a negative impact on their blessing. 74% believe it'll have a negative impact on their blessing. 63% said they have tried to quit before, but they were unable to quit. Okay, so I want to highlight just the first two for this conversation. 82% of men admitted that they had watched porn in the last 6 months, and 48% said they had access in the last 6 months. Now, when y'all hear that, how do you feel?
Scary. It's a real situation out there. But I think also the fact that there are spaces for ourselves as young people to actually be able to share that they're struggling, albeit anonymously, it's actually a good start, because then there is base for programs like High Noon to create the help that is needed or required for our brothers and sisters to be able to access it.
Yeah, frightful, but also a little hopeful, because reality, right? I mean, it's, disheartening for sure, but also, isn't it nice to know, right? I also didn't mention that we did these surveys by country too. It was not uniquely American or Japanese or Korean or European or African. It was all of them. And so I didn't post those. I didn't say those numbers because they're pretty much the same. And also we don't want to like highlight a country and say like, oh, this country is doing slightly worse than all the other countries, right? It's like everyone's in pain and everyone's struggling, right? That's the bottom line. But I wanted to say that because it's like people will say, oh, my country, not in my part of the world, we don't struggle. That's an American thing. That's a Japanese struggle, Akira-san. But it's like, nope, your youth in your country, your men and your women in your country are also struggling. Okay. And so how does that make you feel, Akira-san?
Yeah. First of all, I want to say thank you for doing this survey. And so is because we don't talk about it. When you don't talk about it, it's always suppressed, and it becomes depression. When it's suppressed, it leads to depression. I think when the young people are, everybody, it's, ratio might be different, but I feel depressed. It's got, wow, no way, no hope, because you don't talk about it. And then you get this completely, it's, I don't know, they don't know what to do with these emotions, kind of hopelessness, So you kind of put the light on it. Actually, I'm not the only one. Actually, whole community, everybody going through this. Wow. And it's like a Benjy said, it's such a liberating thing that we talk about this. We crack something. Now they have energy. Now they can look at it, because before they couldn't look at it because so scared to look at it, because don't want to think I'm the problem maker, don't want to be depressed. But now they can see from different eyes. So now we have a power to deal with this. That's how I feel. It's a hopeful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what would you say to people who are listening? Because I was actually like this for a while, so I understand this line of thinking. People listen and they say, well, is it really that big of a deal? If everyone is doing it and everyone seems to be functioning, just fine, our movement is going along, people are getting blessed, what's the big deal? Is it really worth doing surveys? Is it really worth highlighting the shadows, the darkness, the mistakes? And so Hainun has been accused many times of just highlighting the bad, the mistakes. I think they don't understand why we're doing it. So could you speak to that? Like, why is this important?
If I could highlight one of the statistics where we talk about 74% of the respondents believe that it actually has an impact on their blessing in future, or even them approaching towards the marching. What we see, at least all the participants I have had the grace to work with, everybody's North Star goal, by their North Star goal is the goal that we set when you come into Haydn. If you're listening to this for the first time, it's what drives you, your why for getting into the program, and what you really need to get out of it at the end of your program. So one of the things that sits at the top of everyone's lists always is, I think I'm coming to an age where I am preparing to go for marching or blessing. Thinking about it may not be now, maybe a year, 2, 3, whatever that time is, or I'm actually in the journey of preparation. And I realize this is an issue where I don't have real relationships with people, but I'm here trying to pursue a real relationship with somebody else. And therefore, this becomes the goal that they want to address. So while it may look like it's comfortable now because everybody, quote unquote, is doing it, it's not necessarily great for you, because first of all, you're coming from a space of shame. Two, as soon as you've actually either watched or even acted out in the form of masturbation, you are ridden by guilt. And therefore, you are not exactly in the right space, because this is an artificial kind of relationship that you're engaging. If you go back to the sciences of it, is they're pretty much trying to fill a gap in a need that's within them. And at the base of all form of addiction, whether it's pornography, whether it's workaholism, whatever it may be the case, and of course in this conversation, it's mostly porn and masturbation, it just roots from a point of pain, that someone is trying to address a pain, a need that they missed out, wherever that came from, childhood, at whatever stage that was. And therefore, as they're trying to fill this gap, it is them looking into alternative ways of addressing this. And the part of the brain that's actually reacting to this is, the receptors that are very much in charge of relationships, happiness, dopamine, endorphins, all those things, and joy. And therefore, because it's lacking, you're looking for something that's temporary to fill this up. And it's only lasts for that short period of time until it's gone, and then you are left empty and you're feeling ashamed and you're feeling afraid and you're feeling guilty. So it's not sustainable either way. And even if you went forward with a relationship of whatever nature, then you still are not at a space where you can relate with your partner at whatever stage that is in a way that's most healthy, or even have the capacity to receive love from them, because you're still in the space of you are hurt, and therefore you've not really addressed the real situation that you're specifically dealing with. So just to paint a picture out there, that's what is a case. So if that is a case you're looking at, it's comfortable to sit in the numbers, of course, but is it a place that you really, really want to be?
Yeah, that's very insightful and helpful to understand, because on the surface, people are just like, well, just stop. Just stop.
Yeah.
Of course, like anyone that's a struggler, when they hear that, they're just like, that's ludicrous. Like, if I want to stop, I would stop. I have all these standards and visions and values in my life, but I still am succumb to the thing that I hate so much about myself and my behavior. I still do it. And it's confusing because people don't understand why, right? So you're really touching on something much deeper, and it's always deeper, right? So Akira-san, in your experience, what has been the reason people do behaviors that they don't want to do? Why do people keep doing this?
Yeah. We are so good. We are so good at justifying, and we don't have a capacity to take those huge kind of negative energy of shame, guilt. Eventually, we justify, and we don't want to face it. And everything we something negative, we justify. Oh, we're just always running away from like responsibility. Yeah, it's okay. Everybody does. It's when a time comes when I really determine I'm going to stop it. So it's okay. I don't, because I don't really feel the need now. It's better to stop. So we can always come up with all kind of reasons, and that's how our mind works. Even though we feel guilt, that's why I feel what High Noon talk about important. Not just only issue of High Noon, how great when we put ourselves in the right place, when we understand the sexuality in the right way. There's so much joy, beauty, excitement in the sex and the relationship. We're missing out. But if we don't talk about this, not just in the angle of the shame, but the beauty, what we're missing out, and we always running away, justify, because that's what the society. Whenever society talk about sexuality, it's all a joke, wrongly talk about it. That's why unless we talk greatness, we just dominated by temptation and justifications. Yeah, that's how I feel.
Got it. Yeah, we are quite good at justifying behaviors that, quote unquote, feel good or enjoyable. Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to get a bit into the solution more so. I just think it's really hard, actually, because I've been working with young couples, individuals preparing for matching since I was like 19 years old. I became a matching supporter as soon as I got blessed, and I just realized that's kind of what drew me to working with the blessing department in America, and also drew me to High Noon, is because we have been told so many times, even recently, that all we have to do at High Noon is all they need is God, as a way to dismiss the work that we're doing in the lives of people. Okay. And I'm not here to defend High Noon or whatever. I'm here to say that I think it is actually ludicrous to say that, oh, we don't need High Noon because people just need God. I don't disagree with that. Actually, I 100% agree that we need God. That is the solution. I think what is misunderstood is people don't understand that that's exactly what we're doing, is we're giving people God. We talk about the 5 virtues of High Noon as really, really like simple, bite-sized, easy things to do, kind of like you would learn in kindergarten class, right? Courage, accountability, grace, integrity, honesty, right? But people don't get when we actually enter programs and we introduce these into people's daily lives, they realize that this is a blueprint for experiencing God's love. That's what it is. It's substantiating God for people through connection, give and take, through people, through being seen, right? And so, yes, we do need God's love to fill that void you're talking about, Jayong, that feeling of like there's something missing in my life and I don't know what it is because I try my best despite my best efforts and I'm still confused as to why I keep doing things that I hate. But when you give them the source of true joy and happiness to fill that void, God's love essentially, substantiated through connection and people and humans, then it's like people realize that I don't want to watch porn anymore. This happens in our programs, in our Ascend program, which is for people that are struggling with sexual integrity, by the way. They just do it enough. They practice these virtues enough to the point they're like, I haven't thought about porn in like months and I didn't even try. It's like, oh, what happened? Oh, you stopped needing it because you filled the void. Amazing. You know what I'm saying? But when people start a program, understandably, the first level of understanding of the addiction is, I just need to stop watching porn and masturbating. And so they try to force themselves through sheer willpower to stop an addiction. But what happens is they don't address what's actually going on under that. And usually it manifests in another addiction, like more social media, more video games, or anger, or they are able to willpower themselves through the habit, and eventually it'll come back later in some form, right? Like after they're blessed, for example, which happens a lot after they're in a relationship. So what we're doing is we're taking people to at the surface level, quitting porn and masturbation as a gateway for them to actually experience God and to see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel and to walk through that tunnel past the darkness and focus on that light, the North Star, if you will. And that North Star is what we have them focus on as that bright, shining object that is dragging them through the tunnel, even though it's hard and painful and scary to face, but they're focused on the light. And eventually they get so close to that light that it overcomes them and the shadows are overtaken and they're no more. And that's what we talk about high noon living. So that's like, it's really, really deep. And if there's anything I can say of my years working with people as a mentor for sexual integrity, it's always deeper than we think. It is always deeper than we think. The reason that we go to addictive behaviors, escapism, unwanted behaviors, it's always deeper. So I challenge everyone to never stop searching, never stop trying to understand, but don't just understand, also take action. You have to take action, because otherwise you're just stuck in the trap of psychoanalyzing my past, right? Jayong, you know people do this, right? In your line of work, people psychoanalyze this
All
happened
the
to me,
time.
that, and then they don't do anything with that information. They're like, I don't know what to do this, right? So we want to give people a solution. If we can kind of hit on that, I'm going to shut up now for you guys. If you know, like, I'm a terrible host.
For you.
I will say that right now. I'm a terrible host. All right, everyone listening, I know I am. I know I am.
You're doing great.
I'm a terrible host. I know I am.
You're doing so well. I'd like to echo you, Benjy, in terms of when we're talking about the spiritual side of things. And I think this is usually like the default solution where, and I'd imagine because we don't have the right tools to be able to support and help people. And therefore, the first thing that we're likely to think about is, okay, some sort of exorcism needs to happen right now. And therefore, we need to take you to Champion, or you need to do something. And we've got your ancestors being accused of every sort of thing that we have no idea what it is about. And yes, it's great, go to Champion, because sometimes you'll get to meet Haidu and stuff, right? And you'll get to have the tools. So that's amazing.
You will always meet high noon staff at Champion. Always.
You will always meet them.
Always, yeah, I
so,
swear.
but on the other side, it's just equally understanding that we are a spirit and body. So the solution needs to be both. So there's a spiritual angle where absolutely we need God and we need those tools and we need to walk through our spiritual life and the habits that we require to be able to replace and also have this eternal kind of love. But at the same time, remember that God created both. There's this physical aspect of life where we expect to be interacting on the lateral, horizontal level. That also helps us build something within us. And that's the bit that we're always constantly missing that has led to the pain that we experience. And therefore, as we are getting the spiritual support that we need, we also need to address it from the physical angle, which is now, of course, the sessions, the weekly calls that people come and have in High Noon. At the same time, it's just dispelling the concept that everyone who comes through High Noon is absolutely trash in terms of how they handle their integrity. I have met people who've come into High Noon who this is just a great space where we have conversations in a principled way, where we never have them because the only thing we grew up hearing, like literally all my workshops, it was chapter 2, the fall. That's the only thing we talk about. And the funny thing is, true parents talk about this in the most open way. The core of the universe book, literally almost every page, as much as I'm not ready to cover yet, there is a reference to a scripture somewhere. There's a reference to something that talks about sexual integrity. And therefore, if you look at it from both angles, then we definitely need the support in both ways. Because for some people, it's really literally got into a space of they can't physically function, they can't work, they can't operate in whatever spaces. And therefore, they need tools or habits that are physical in nature that help them supplement whatever that they're doing on the spiritual side. It's also a change of environment, getting even better friends that you have around yourself. So it's not about a person being, I'm a good child, I'm a bad child, but just understanding that this person is in pain. And last night, as I was thinking through this, I had the most random, weird thought. I don't know whether it was an inspiration. And because at the bottom line of everything we're saying, it's someone who's in pain and ends up doing something that probably they don't like, and it becomes addictive and it's obsessive compulsive disorder. And I thought about God. I was like, and that blew my mind away. It was like, oh, snap, I think the biggest addict on this entire universe is God, because he is in constant pain that his children are in the state that they are. And his behavior is that he cannot rest until he's restored us to the place where he wanted us originally, so that we can have this healthy kind of relationship. The only difference with God, he's driven with the right motive. When is he going to get there? We don't know. We hope we'll be able to support that. And therefore, I was looking at Hainan staff facilitators and mentors and APs as the conduit through which then God uses us to be able to fast track these specific things so that we can get back to him as the children that he has. And because usually most of the time we think about it as, oh my God, that God would use me. I'm not the most perfect person to do this. But I hadn't really thought about it in the context of God is an addict too. The difference is this type of addiction is leading him towards the right motivation where he's trying to call us back to himself. So it's also equally understanding and addressing the fact that sexual attraction is not wrong. There's nothing wrong with it. It's how we deal with the entire feeling, how you address it. Where do you channel this, and who are you having these conversations with? Who do you get to listen to? And I liked the previous session because it was parents speaking about how we address these conversations with our children. For me, these conversations were addressed by my own mother. So I trust her more than I could ever trust anybody else. So if I was struggling with anything, I can easily speak to her and she could easily direct me towards the right path. So it's just understanding where this thing really sits and understanding that at the end of the day, we're all trying to attempt real love, whether it is heavenly parents' love or with our siblings, with our friends, with our community, so then we can be better, healthier individuals in the society. And then the opposite isn't, when you're talking about solution, isn't being sober. There's nothing about being sober in this space. There's nothing sobriety. It's about this person accessing the right connection, basically love. That's the bottom line for them. And once they access it, then they're able to lead healthier lives. And as you're saying, soon they realize we don't need to be doing this habit. It's been a while since I, went into this space, and I'm having better, healthier conversations. I have better friends everywhere. And I'm the kind of person I want to be now.
Thank you. What would you say, Akira-san?
Oh, yeah.
What do we need?
In daily life, yeah, there's so many things happens, right? In school, right? And somebody play better sports or not good, or somebody looks better. We constantly comparing. There's so much frustration. It doesn't matter younger age or become adult. We go through a lot of frustrations and don't know how to handle those emotions, and quickest ways are going to the porn and masturbation to release this the energy, negative energies. Don't know what else to do. And so this become a shame. And always this greatest shame, negative, it's come with this kind of sexuality. And I realized that when someone's in pain somewhere, and we feel greatest love when someone remove that part, the nails in a stabbing them, remove that, they feel so much love in that, It's not about we talk about problem, but we feel love when a problem is understood and removed. And I feel when I was going through some really guilt and shame, and then I remember that. So someone just talk about and then talk to me, and I was not just already talk about it, I just felt I was understood. Not I talk about problem. I felt the reason why I couldn't do certain thing or get into something is because I was going through something, and I felt this person understood me. That point, I clearly felt it was physical experience. I just felt so I could feel that something complete world changed. Wow, I was understood. That is love. People look for feeling experience of I'm understood, and that is absolutely important. We can talk about God, but people need to substantially experience. Love is feel understood, and I matter, and we need someone to give the experience, and it's very important. And that's why I feel like a high news not talk about issues, but because people are feeling a lot of guilt on this sexuality, and then we need the people to help that. There's someone who can understand your challenges and then bring you to something beautiful. That is absolutely needed. And we all need that experience. But sometimes we talk about ideal. This is what we have to do. This is where we have to be. And no one is helping them to remove this guilt, which is blocking love to come into their lives. So what you're doing is so important. Everybody needs it.
Interesting. So both of you said love, and I also said love. When people hear that, I because I know people, the first thing people generally think is like, I don't see the connection. Unless you've been through it, it's kind of like we're trying to teach like a really complicated math equation, in like school. And then the teacher just says, all right, here's the answer to your complicated life. The students don't learn anything because there's no linear progression. There's no linear step-by-step understanding of how a problem leads to a solution. Does that make sense? So I hope that we can break down a little bit for people. For example, you were talking about like stress or inadequacy in life, like in school or sports or something. And that leads to a certain feeling. And then that leads to people wanting to escape life, right? So how is it that love or connection, as we put it, is a solution to that feeling? Does that make sense? Because it doesn't, on the surface, it doesn't equate. It doesn't make sense. But there's something deeper here. Yeah.
Yeah, Benji. Yeah, that's good. That's really important. But it's all maybe compare. Oh, I already feel love. I know, my friend loves me, my parents love me, and I understand. But I always use this example of that and azuki ice cream. I don't know if you heard about my story about azuki ice cream. It's a Japanese ice cream. So people enjoy the Safeway, American. I'm sorry, it's kind of cheap brand ice cream. Oh, so good. And I tell, hey, you guys don't know real ice cream taste unless you eat azuki ice cream, Japanese brand ice cream. Oh, I didn't know there's so much better ice cream exists in the world. Then you know what you've been missing. So, I already feel, so I don't need IMO, but because you already become normalized. That's the state of your feeling of love. That's okay. This is a love. That's your concept. But there's a greater love can be experienced when you let go of this shame. The people don't understand that unless they experience it. And because they're so scared to that, that's why they're constantly saying, don't worry, it's okay. You are beloved. Everything's okay. Don't worry. You're listening. But that's what I experienced in the GP and STF. First time I talk to them one-on-one and create a space that they can share anything. When they share something deep, something never touched about, because you said that 70% or 60% people never they talked about this. That's many people, because they don't talk about it. They don't want to talk about it, unless they feel safe. So then when I able to give that experience of be able to first time share something very deep inside, that's what I do always as a mentor in the STF GPA. Then the complete boom experience, new experience of love. Wow. Well, I never felt such a freedom or understood or embraced. Because unless they share honestly, they don't understand that love comes with embracement, forgiveness, understanding. They need to experience. So, but somebody have to give that experience. Otherwise, people think, "Oh, I'm okay. I'm loved. Everything's okay." What the matter is, yeah.
Got it.
Give that first.
Thank you for that linear explanation. I think that's helpful. Yeah. What do you think, Jaya? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think there's a bit where it's good to come from a place of understanding, and people who've been through it do understand it definitely far much more than someone who hasn't been through it, because you empathize at a very different level. You truly understand, which is why people feel safe and safety in those numbers, as unhealthy as they are. However, like myself, I think you asked, was I in the program before I started supporting? No, I wasn't. Sometimes it's just the point of how can I be empathetic and sensitive enough to the fact that there's suffering and pain all around me, and how can I be there? Even if I don't have the tools, it's the willingness to just be present and listen and just allow a person to talk. Because what we do, I think, as APs and facilitators is just ask questions and have people just talk about stuff, where every day or every couple of days they're able to report and just say, okay, I feel hard, because sometimes the answers they're seeking for are within themselves. So it's less of me trying to dig an experience within myself that I may not have, or maybe I may have, and trying to share with them, because one of the best thing that they can be is honesty. And sometimes it's just as good as saying, thank you for sharing. I don't relate. I don't know. I don't have an answer. I can ask someone who probably knows this, but I appreciate that you are able to share, and just empathizing and expressing grace and love, and non-judgment. Because I think religion by itself, it's founded from the space of judgment, where the constant thing that we preach to people, and it doesn't matter what religion you are, you could be Islamic, it could be whatever the case, it's all about punishment and fear and guilt, and that's all we preach within the Christian spaces. If you're not doing this, there's hellfire for you to burn, and therefore people find it very difficult to be able to step up and share and say, hey, I am actually going through trouble. I imagine if he knew that I could actually God instead of pointing fingers, and I'll be heard and I'll be helped, maybe we would be in a different situation, as opposed to how religion has structured itself from a point of fear, and people are no longer, in some cases, people may not actually relate to God because they want to, or because they've had a personal experience. It's more of, just in case I go to hell, at least I've got myself covered. It's some form of insurance for an afterlife. But it's very different once you've actually gone through that space, and then you can know what real love is, and you know how to be embraced, and you know how to be there for people. So that's very important at the end of the day, in terms of how well you get to empathize and just be there for people, because it allows them the space to reflect and support. And even for you, you get to be exposed to what are your gaps personally. I think a lot of my journey and my personal learnings through the 2-3 years of supporting Heinen has been me figuring out, okay, so I had this conversation with this person, it maybe triggered me in this other way. And now, because I'm in a constant space of having these tools, I'm able to either use the emotion wheel or figure out whatever it is. Why am I having this? What's going on within me? And be able to also reflect within myself, because I want to be better also at the end of the day, either to be better for that person or the next person, or for my own self in the future. And I think also it allows me the space of service, even in the waiting, because some of our facilitators are also single people like myself. So it gets people into that space where there are certain aspects of this entire journey you actually empathize with them, but it also gives you the tools and the resources to be able to be there, because we learn from each other through that process. So love does not have to be specifically prescribed in a certain way, but it's just a simple space through the values that are within this space that people get to have. And then they say, now I have a tool to be able to address. I've had a participant who, yes, they did share with their parents, but it was so difficult for them to approach it. Because the parent was like, yeah, fine, I get it. I really empathize with my child, but I just don't have the tools to be able to support them. So I need them to go somewhere or be with someone who can be able to support. The best I can do is just tell them, I hear you, thank you for sharing with me. And that's it. And therefore, in that case, what we did was try to find support, because it's the Hainun moms and Hainun dads, like, could we get someone to just work with this parent? And because they was genuinely willing to be there for their child. And that determination from the parent really, really did actually help the child, because realize, oh, my parent really wants to support me, even though part of my pain is caused by probably just how they spoke to me or just how callous this person may be, and they're not even realizing it. But it gave them tools to be able to also personally reflect and understand, oh, yeah, I'm being mean here. This is not how I should be approaching this, because it's impacting people around me in this or the other way.
Yeah, and that's probably more uncommon to have a parent that can somewhat help, right?
Yes.
I would say most parents, just to give a little grace to parents, most parents don't know how to talk about this in any healthy way. So I'm saying that because even though the reality is that participants in our programs and also people that are struggling don't experience unconditional grace and love in the most perfect way from their parents, that's why we have Hainun. That's why we're trying to give that to you guys in Hainun. And it's not to replace parents, by the way. I want to make that clear. It's to add more support on top of what you have in your life. We want to give more. It's not to replace. We're not replacing anyone. Our job in our programs is actually to give you the tools that you can use in your daily life. We're going to give you the how-to substantiate God and love in your life, in your own support system, and create that support system. Yeah. So does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Yeah. And so I'm gonna give a shout out to the programs in just a second. But that's why we're here, guys. Our entire ministry started with one program, the Ascend program, which is to directly combat, I don't want to say combat, but to help people deal with unwanted sexual integrity discrepancies and struggles and addictions. That's why Hainun started from the beginning. That's the impetus, is that the Wolfenbergers, Uncle Dave on Mitsue were so, it became so apparent to them that this is a massive roadblock for people to experience a Hainun life, but also to receive the blessing and create a blessed family. And so they started 9 years ago, by the way. This is the 9-year anniversary. I don't think we mentioned that so far, the 9-year anniversary of that initial inspiration, okay? And it started with a program called Ascend to help individuals gain sexual integrity and train it in their daily lives. And now we also have a program for single people preparing for marriage, which you're part of, right, Jayo? Called Core, which is people that want to prepare for marriage and for the blessing, right? And we also have a couple intimacies program called Radiant to help y'all become radiant, blessed couples. And those are all accessible. You guys can save your spots for those programs, because we do actually have limited amount of space in those programs because of our capacity, and you can join them for free, hainun.org, right? So let's say, I think for me, what has been a really helpful framework to help people who are really confused about their sexual unwanted behaviors is help distinguish that the reason people start a porn addiction, a porn use in the beginning, is usually out of curiosity and difficult emotions. Like usually when people are teens or earlier, 10, 11, 12 years old, 13, 14, doesn't matter. The reason people start is usually because of some difficult emotion and curiosity a little bit, right? Sexual in nature. And so that's when people start. Ideally, people would have that experience and they would go, oh, that was interesting, kind of attractive, kind of felt good, kind of disgusting a little bit. And I feel a little like guilty about this. I'm going to go talk to somebody, right? Ideally, that's how it would happen. But most people don't do that because we don't know how. We don't know how to do it because we're kids. And the reason people stay in addiction is because of shame. They start because of curiosity and difficult emotions, and usually people stay because of shame. Strugglers with an addiction will know this very well. The shame cycle. It's the experience of going a really long time, doing really well, doing your best, and then something happens, you get stressed, you're bored, you're anxious, you're lonely, see something online, whatever the situation is, and then you make a mistake. And then what are the following thoughts after that? I can't believe I did that again. I'm such a terrible person. I can never get matched. I can never get married. I'm a terrible father. I'm a terrible woman, daughter. I'm dirty. I'm self-centered. I'm all this stuff. You see what's going on? And so the shame is elevated, right, Akira-san?
Yep.
And then what do people do to deal with this shame?
Do again.
Do the same thing. It's laughable, but it's so true. Maybe people that don't struggle with addiction can understand this with like food consumption, overeating, right? You go downstairs to make a healthy meal, and the easiest thing is cereal or ice cream. And it's like, oh, I was going to eat something good, and then I just ate junk food, and now I feel terrible because I made a bad mistake, and I might as well just spend the whole weekend binge eating a bunch of chips and stuff, right? It's laughable because it's true. It's funny because it's true. And we know this to be true. And I think it's helpful to discern and distinguish that fundamentally the reason people stay in addiction is to reaffirm to themselves that I am a piece of garbage and I'm worthless and I'm unworthy of love. And so just as both of you have said, the solution to that is to eliminate that shame.
Absolutely.
So what is the shame we're talking about? That's the shadows. It's the ungodly parts of us that say, you're wrong, you're terrible, you're selfish. Your heart is wrong, you're bad, evil. Your sexuality is bad and selfish and wrong because of your behavior. I told you, that's what this shadow is telling you. I told you, you can never get blessed. You can never get married because you're evil and wrong and shadowy. So how do we get rid of that? We shed light on it. That's True Fathers. That's what he came to here to talk about, my friends. That's channel good. You shed light on it. You get your high noon flashlight out. You shed light on it, and it disappears because it can't exist. The shadow cannot exist in the presence of light. It can't. To the right person. We're not saying you guys go on Facebook and say, hey, guys, I watch porn. Not to everybody, the right person or people that are going to look at you and say, yeah, thanks for sharing. You're still loved. Now get back up. Keep moving. Like the first time that you watched porn or made a mistake when you were a child. What could have happened is that you said, I made a mistake, parent, loved one. And they say, okay, thanks for sharing. Don't do that again. I'm here with you. If it happens again, I will be with you every step of the way. I will be with you. Let's keep talking about this. But how many of us actually had parents, fathers or mothers that told us from a young age, like, you're going to go through some difficult things, sexually speaking. There's going to be temptation around every corner, and I will be with you every step of the way. How many parents have told their children that? Very few. In fact, it was the opposite. Don't do that. I'll tell you once. Better not do it again. And that's the end of it. But God is with us constantly. Yeah. And that's the solution. We need God. We need presence. We need connection to be with us every step of the way. With us. Not hovering over us, but side by side, hand in hand. That feeling of like, no matter what I go through, like someone's got my back. Heavenly Mother is saying, son, daughter, I love you no matter what. Heavenly Father is saying, don't do that again. You silly boy. Smack you on the head. That's at least what Heavenly Father means is to me. It's like, don't do that, Benjy. Come on. Don't be ridiculous.
Yeah. I really like what you say, Benjy. So constantly we are creating an energy with a positive or negative. There's a thought, what we give and take thought. So we have a constant, natural, automatic give and take with all the possible negative thoughts. And I'm a piece of shit, and I'm worthless, and I can never overcome this. So it's all without knowing, we are having this give and take, which whole society is listening to these radio stations, like a perfectly clear channel is connected to that, and they're listening it. And then where else is the channel, the radio station they can connect? Unless the parents are talk about it, unless some friends are talk about it, the only constantly give and take is this negative channel. That's why I think I like that what the Benjy said, constantly talk about, constantly, not only one time. Hey, I remember one time the Alabama, the church, like BC couple, they said that. So how they bring the younger people back, they say that I constantly talk that we're here for you. I have a space to come. So that the people feel, constantly hear that, even they don't want to come to church, but constantly hear that, yeah, we're here for you. Whenever you want to come, you can come. Creating a space, they feel secure to come anytime because they're talking all the time. Never push, but always create the space. They eventually say, they're unchanging, they're constant. Okay, I can come. Then people start to come. And I just feel same thing. Before the challenge come, hey, eventually the challenge come, don't worry, I got you. But not only one time, constant. So then when the challenge come, they always come. Then they'll come. I think we are all afraid to get hurt. We all look for love, but also we are also afraid of not having love. We want to be healed, but also we're afraid to get hurt again. That's why we don't risk it. We know how to know risk, how to stay in a safe zone. We know it. That's why, as Benjy said, we always create a safe zone. Hey, I'm here. You can come anytime. I think that culture is a Hainu culture. And I feel, Benjy, I think, your brother, right? And you guys created space. I already remember when I talk about, hey, I had a porn issue before in the dinner table, and a couple members there. And that's so smiling. Yeah, I had issues, and then this and that. Well, I'm so great now. I'm in love with my wife. It so speak lightly, and it's amazing. I just felt, wow. Sometimes we try to help. Okay, I teach you. I will guide you. But not so many people talk about, yeah, I went through it. I know I slipped myself, but I overcome. I think we need that kind of a brotherly, sisterly love. I got you because I was there. But don't worry. We're together. We work through. I think that's a culture of Hainu. Real brotherhood, not just this is the ideal. Let's go. But, hey, we can go together. And that's what we need.
Got it. Thank you. Due to that. Thank you. Yeah, Akira-san, I really appreciate you sharing that and being open about your family and bringing that perspective 100%. Jayang, could you give us some closing words before we wrap up from you? What do you want to share?
Yeah, sure. Of course, safe spaces is the first thing that you want to create. But also understanding that this is it's a social issue, it's a spiritual issue, it's physical, it's emotional, it's psychological. So you need to address it from every single angle there is. And also just don't give up. It's not as easy to address pain in any way, but just knowing that there are spaces out there that you can address and you can go to is more than enough. That there are people that will be there, and just also being open to learning the tools that you can, just to provide the spaces and just avoiding judgment in its sense, because there's always a temptation to feel like you know it all and you've always had everything there is to be had. That's one way and one solution out, but that may not be the case, and that may not be what the person that's coming to you needs. And therefore, if you can just be there with the listening ear, and if you don't have resources, be honest to let them know that you don't know, but you could definitely link them up. That will be a great way to just plainly support people out there. And also take care of yourself if you're a facilitator, because it can get harder to be there. So you can't give from an empty cup. It's an equal cycle of, as you're supporting, also growing yourself in the same space.